everyone. Pleasure for me to be here. It's always nice to come up to Newcastle. I don't get here very often, but it's a real cradle for Fairtrade. You mentioned earlier about Richard Adams, who was founder of Tradecraft, which is probably the first Fairtrade organisation as we know it. Now still one of the most successful around the world. Been here since 1979. Fairtrade Foundation is the organisation behind the Fairtrade mark that you probably know and see it on coffee and tea and bananas and chocolate and a whole host of food products. But we're also involved in cotton. We also are an NGO. We're a coalition of development organisations. So slightly different perhaps for everybody else here today. We come from perspective of global fight against poverty, with a set up by organisations like Oxfam, Christian Aid, Tradecraft, World Development Movement. And we rely very much on their support to build the profile of Fairtrade. But trade unions have played an incredibly important part in that process. They're one of the first constituencies in the country to really hop on to this, not pun intended, to this idea of what the implications were and the need for solidarity. And so it's very nice to be returning the favour and supporting this event. So this idea of what we call fair trade, it comes from the perspective that the global fight against poverty, and it's about the failure of the trading system. Where people have been talking here primarily about bad practices, things that companies do that are unfair. It's important to realise that sits in a context, as Keith was mentioning, of an unfair trading system that leaves half the world's population living on less than $2 a day. And the theory behind all this, the free trade agenda was that trade would create wealth, and that wealth would trickle down to the poor. We've had lots of trade, we've had lots of wealth creation, and we've had bugger all in the way trickle down, frankly. So it really is time to take a different approach. And one of the critiques of that free trade model is what phrase we've often heard, the race to the bottom. I thought I'd just check my references to make sure I was describing it properly. So I went on the internet last night and Googled race to the bottom. Click the first thing, and it said, the situation in which companies and countries try to compete with each other by cutting wages and living standards for workers, and the production of goods is moved to the place where the wages are lowest and the workers have the fewest rights. Well, yeah, I recognise that, but maybe I should find a source that's not quite so radical left-wing. And then I realised I was on the Financial Times website. So that's what they say about globalisation, not what I'm saying. And really that term race to the bottom could have been written for the global garment industry. It has always worked like that. I know that from my own family's experience. My grandfather was an immigrant from Eastern Europe who worked in a sweatshop in Brick Lane in the East End of London. And my father, when I was growing up in the 1960s, was still working in conditions that resonated with some of the conditions that you saw there. No permanent employment, no rights, very difficult to join a trade union. My dad spent the last 20 years of his working life actually working as a home worker because it was the easiest way of the best way to make a living. So one of the things that resonates with me in my work with Fairtrade is that from the garment industry, we haven't solved the problem. It has always been an exploitative industry. 100 years ago, it was textile mills in Lancashire. And we haven't solved it, we just moved the problem somewhere else. And we've got to remind really that stopped. And of course, the rest